My name is Sarah Lee Lawrence, and we're here at Range Shadow Organics, which I own and operate with my husband Ashanti Samuels. And we also share the land across the street, Pitchfork Tea Ranch.
I know we live in a beautiful place and we love to have the community growing and things like that, but our agricultural land is what's needed to be able to help sustain that. And so, you know, developing farmland and breaking it up, farm and ranch land, isn't going to be the way for the future.
Bend is growing at an exponential rate, and it's hard to say at what point this ground is not going to be protected just by our local policy. And so to get ahead of that and actually protect this land now is really important. So right now it's like, well, you couldn't develop it anyway, but it won't be long before I probably could.
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Oregon lost 400,000 acres of farmland to growth and development from 2007 to 2017. The OAHP provides farmers and ranchers an alternative to development.
The Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program encompasses 4 grant programs: conservation planning, succession planning, technical assistance, and working lands easements.
We came home and had a family meeting about succession planning, and after a rather tearful, emotional meeting, the family members all said, you know, we're not interested in coming back. And I think that was probably one of the real pivotal moments for us, that we knew we had to do something because there were not, or there aren't, heirs that were going to take on that legacy. This here is really great sagebrush, because see how it's low to the ground where the birds can get in, they can do their nesting. The sage grouse are really sentinel animals for habitat. We've been really blessed here with this ranch, and we feel like we need to take care of it, but we also need to pass it on to future generations and protect it. And having served as the county's planning director, and I'm fully knowledgeable of, if you work at it, you can divide up land and you can also develop land. And this land is susceptible to mining operations or mineral extraction. It's susceptible to a lot of things. And you know, one of the things that's important to us is that preservation of the landscape and the wildlife, but also a viable active ranch.
A working land easement is where a farmer or rancher sells development rights that they wouldn't use anyway to protect the land for agriculture. This frees up cash and makes the land more affordable for the next generation.
OAHP will make it easier to do working lands conservation easements because it's a program designed to fit and protect working lands properties. So understanding the agricultural components and needs that an operation has, whereas right now our funding sources at the state level in Oregon are limited to ecological focused projects, which don't necessarily take into account the needs of the cattle operation or the farm, and so they need to fit the type of landscape that they're working on. There is a federal funding program through the Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS. It's called the Agricultural Lands Easement Program, or ALE. They currently will fund up to 50% of a conservation easement, but you have to have match. And so we haven't had a state matching source, so we've been leaving those federal dollars on the table. Other states have been able to utilize them to come up with match, and if we can get funding through the Oregon Ag Heritage Program, we can tap into that ALE money and be able to fund more projects and continue to bring federal dollars into the state that right now we can't use.
When the rancher at the Pitchfork Tea Ranch wanted to retire, his children weren't prepared to take over the ranch, and so they needed to sell the ranch, and they needed to sell it for what it was worth, and they deserved that, and that was not in our business plan. And so the easement is an incredible opportunity to offset that so that we can actually afford the land.
Developing conservation easements takes time. We have been developing this conservation easement on Pitchfork Tea with Sarah Lee and Ashanti for 2 years now, and we probably have another year to go before the easement's actually in place. And so from building relationships and trust to securing funding to doing due diligence and drafting legal documents, documents. It requires a great deal of patience. And for the land trust, it also requires financial resources to do that work. So technical assistance from OAHP will help us do more projects faster, protecting more farms and ranches from development and the habitat that those farms and ranches protect.
With us running the cattle here and trying to maintain and keep the land together, which is really, really important with us, and the OHP program would help us in a tremendous way to be able to keep the agricultural easements, to keep the wildlife corridors open, and be able to just keep land intact.
The average age of an Eastern Oregon rancher is in the mid-60s. There has to be some way to transition the lands forward, because it's absolutely impossible for a young family starting out is to buy the land, buy the equipment, buy the livestock or whatever they choose, and then have operating money and make it.
Fund OAHP to protect Oregon's rural economy and landscapes.
Fund OAHP to keep working lands in production and to protect the wildlife habitat that they support.
People say you need a lawyer and a dentist and a banker or whatever, but you know who you need every single day is a farmer.
I think that it's critical that this be funded in order to continue this strength for our agricultural lands and that next generation.